The storm brewing inside Red Bull has finally reached Max Verstappen's doorstep. What once looked like an unbreakable alliance between the four-time world champion and the Austrian racing powerhouse is now showing deep cracks that are spreading fast under the strain of escalating chaos. Whispers, both from inside the paddock and the wider F1 world, are growing louder, suggesting that Max might already be eyeing the exit door from the very team that turned him into a motorsport icon. And if this internal meltdown keeps getting worse, that exit could come much sooner than anyone predicted. At the center of this looming implosion is a lethal cocktail, a shaky car development strategy and an intensifying power struggle behind the scenes that's exposing just how fragile the Red Bull inner circle has become. The once rock-solid faith in Red Bull's engineering wizardry is fading. The RB20 was a nightmare to handle, and its successor, the RB21, hasn't exactly brought peace of mind either. Confidence is eroding fast, and with it, the patience of their star driver. But the real alarm bell? Jos Verstappen. A man of few words, Jos doesn't speak unless he smells real trouble, and recently, he didn't hold back. His blunt statement that Max wouldn't hesitate to jump ship if Red Bull can't deliver a winning car wasn't just a warning, it was a direct shot across the bow. When he starts talking, it means the fuse is already burning. So now, the burning question. Is Max Verstappen actually preparing for a fresh chapter? And if so, where would he land? Enter Mercedes. Despite Toto Wolff's ever-diplomatic poker face during interviews, there's genuine buzz that Mercedes could become Max's next home. Beneath Wolff's calm exterior lies a team itching to claw its way back to the top, and what better way to return to glory than to sign the very man who's dominated the grid for years? Behind closed doors, Mercedes is gearing up for the possibility. Because let's not kid ourselves, Verstappen's future with Red Bull is hanging by a thread, and how the team handles their ticking time bomb of a car development project will determine whether that thread snaps. And let's be honest, 2025 has not been kind to Red Bull. They've made headlines, but for all the wrong reasons. The season took a sharp turn into madness when they pulled the plug on one of their drivers just 2 races in, a move that shattered all previous records for shortest tenure in the team's history. According to several well-connected insiders, including the ever-reliable Lawrence Lawson, Max was furious about that call. He reportedly unleashed his frustration during a heated closed-door meeting in Dubai. But despite the blowback, Red Bull pushed ahead and slotted Yuki Tsunoda into the seat. Let's be clear, Verstappen isn't losing sleep over Tsunoda outperforming him. That's not the issue. His frustration cuts deeper. It's about focus. He's convinced the team is spending more energy scouting for a backup driver than fixing the serious performance issues with the car. And that's a line he won't let them cross. Max didn't sign up to babysit. He's here to win. And if Red Bull can't give him the tools to do that, he might just decide it's time to burn the whole damn bridge and walk away. Max Verstappen doesn't want to merely participate, he wants to dominate. For him, being behind the wheel of a car that can consistently win races isn't a preference, it's a non-negotiable. And this isn't just media speculation or fan fiction, it's been confirmed from within the Red Bull camp itself. In a recent and unusually candid interview, Red Bull senior advisor Helmut Marko admitted, "We're fully aware that Max isn't pleased with the current state of things. But we need both cars at the front, not just to keep the Constructors' Championship within reach, but to help Max secure his 5th world title." Marko didn't stop there. He also went out of his way to praise Yuki Tsunoda's recent performances, describing him as a driver who hasn't put a foot wrong. He's quick, confident, and finally carving out his own path. On the surface, those comments seem complimentary. But beneath that layer of praise lies a growing storm, one that's pushing Verstappen closer and closer to a crossroads. Despite Marko's optimism, the F1 rumor mill is in overdrive. Whispers are spreading like wildfire, not because Verstappen fears being outperformed by Tsunoda, but because the Japanese driver's sudden promotion raises uncomfortable questions. After years of biding his time, Yuki's elevation suggests a fundamental shift in Red Bull's internal priorities. And that shift is exactly what's rubbing Max the wrong way. For a driver laser-focused on results, distractions and internal dysfunction are red flags. There's now immense pressure on Yuki to prove he can be the most competitive teammate Max has had since Daniel Ricciardo. But let's be honest, none of that will matter if the current disarray within the team continues. If the chaos persists, Verstappen could very well be out the door before any meaningful chemistry even has the chance to form. Fueling this uncertainty is Red Bull's apparent inability to regain control of its development program. The RB21, supposed to be a refined, evolution-based machine, has turned out to be an engineering enigma. Progress has stalled, and there's a looming fear that these issues might carry over into 2026, a year that's not just another season, but the dawn of a radically new regulatory era in Formula One. Rather than leading the charge into that new era, Red Bull seems paralyzed, stuck with a car that doesn't deliver and a technical team that's slowly losing its direction. Talented personnel have already exited the team, and growing rumors surrounding Adrian Newey's reduced involvement have only deepened the sense of crisis. Marco didn't sugarcoat this either. Of course we miss someone like Adrian. You can't just replace him with a rookie. What he brings is decades of experience and an entire structure built around his vision, he confessed. He even dared to draw comparisons that would have once been unthinkable, suggesting that the Racing Bulls, Red Bull's own junior team, currently have a car that's more drivable and even quicker over a single lap than the RB21, despite their lack of consistency during full race conditions. Let that sink in. Red Bull's own senior advisor is subtly praising the customer car while pointing fingers at the flagship team's performance issues. That alone should tell you everything about the state of the team. Right now, Red Bull isn't just struggling, they're fractured. Vulnerable. And Max Verstappen? He's stuck in the eye of the storm, carrying the weight of a team that no longer looks invincible. This isn't just about a car that's underperforming. It's about a loss of trust, a crisis of leadership, and a driver who's rapidly running out of patience. The truth is, the possibility of Verstappen leaving Red Bull is no longer some outlandish fantasy. It's becoming a realistic scenario, especially if the internal mess continues to spiral. And if he does make the move, only two teams make real sense: Mercedes and Aston Martin. Both are eager, both have the financial firepower, and both would kill to have Verstappen lead them into F1's next era. Sure, Max has stated publicly that he's committed to Red Bull. But if F1 has taught us anything, it's that loyalty in this sport is conditional. It lasts only as long as the results do. If Red Bull can't clean up their act and build a machine worthy of the championship fight, Verstappen won't just sit around and wait. He's not here for apologies, he's here for glory. And if he decides to jump ship, the impact won't be limited to Red Bull. It'll ripple across the entire sport like a seismic shockwave. We must not forget something fundamental. Max Verstappen made a commitment to Red Bull, but it wasn't some blind oath of eternal loyalty. No, his agreement was based on Red Bull sorting out their erratic machinery and returning to championship-winning form. He never vowed to stay if the team kept falling short. And that distinction matters now more than ever. Because what we're seeing unfold isn't just a slump, it's a crisis, and every decision from this point on could reshape the landscape of Formula One. Enter Zak Brown. Now, everyone in the paddock knows to take his statements with a grain of salt. He's become a bit of a provocateur, a master of lobbing verbal grenades in Red Bull's direction to stir the pot. That's his playbook. He knows Red Bull is vulnerable, and he's exploiting it like a seasoned opportunist. But this time, his words carry more weight. Because he's no longer the only one talking. Sources close to the core of Formula One are now hinting that Verstappen may already be mapping out his dramatic exit, with the end of the current season circled in red. And the most frequently mentioned landing spot? Mercedes. Zak Brown didn't hold back. "I think Max is leaving at the end of the year," he said plainly. "And I think he ends up at Mercedes." He even acknowledged the speculation surrounding Aston Martin, especially following the high-profile whispers of Adrian Newey potentially being involved in future projects, but he reminded everyone of a sobering truth. Even the greatest engineer can't win championships on his own. You need an entire infrastructure, a winning culture, a well-oiled machine. In Brown's view, Mercedes already has that in spades. They are, in his words, the gold standard, a team that dominated Formula One for nearly a decade, racking up 7 or 8 world titles in 10 years. Even during their so-called rebuilding phase, they managed to win 5 races last season. That kind of resilience doesn't go unnoticed. Brown also highlighted the organizational stability Mercedes enjoys. With Toto Wolff still firmly in control and a top-tier technical team preparing for the seismic regulation overhaul in 2026, Mercedes isn't just surviving, they're preparing to strike. And then there's the engine wild card. According to Brown, this could be the deciding factor in any potential Verstappen move. While Red Bull has done remarkably well considering their recent entry into the engine manufacturing game, they're still newcomers. Mercedes and Ferrari, on the other hand, are way ahead of the curve when it comes to developing the new power units for 2026. And that might be the edge that makes all the difference. So, if you're looking for the fault lines that could shatter the Red Bull Verstappen dynasty, they're already visible. Internal confusion, shaky engineering, and a driver hungry for greatness are converging at full speed. And if Max decides that enough is enough, the fallout will change everything. Not just for Red Bull. For the entire sport. Especially after parting ways with Honda and taking on the monumental task of crafting its own legacy through Red Bull Powertrains, the team now finds itself in uncharted territory. Meanwhile, Mercedes boasts a refined, battle-tested engine program that has earned the respect of the entire paddock. And with the sweeping regulation changes scheduled for 2026, everything points toward one defining truth. Power units will be the heartbeat of competitiveness. Red Bull's uncertainty in this department might be the final push that drives Max Verstappen to look for a safer harbor. One that promises stability, proven engineering, and a clear roadmap for success. And that's not all. Zak Brown added more fuel to the fire, reminding everyone that George Russell's contract expires at the end of the current season. That vacancy, or at least the possibility of one, opens a strategic window. Simultaneously, Mercedes' next-gen prodigy, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, hailed by many as the future of the Silver Arrows, is expected to be slotted into a series of short-term, flexible contracts. This maneuver gives the team breathing room and options. It's a chessboard being set with intent, a scenario where Verstappen could assume the role of undisputed team leader, while Antonelli gains experience in the shadows, learning and waiting for his time. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of Brown's commentary was his recognition of Mercedes' deep experience in the hybrid era and their preparedness for whatever lies ahead. Should there be any delays in implementing the new 2026 rules, or even whispers of a return to V10s powered by sustainable fuel, a concept gaining traction in certain circles, everything changes again. In such a scenario, Verstappen's potential move to Mercedes suddenly feels not just plausible, but almost inevitable. Max isn't naive. He's one of the most strategic and forward-thinking minds on the grid. He's watching this entire situation unfold with clinical precision. Red Bull's internal disarray, their stalling car development, the political backstabbing behind closed doors, and the cloud of uncertainty surrounding their engine project. For Max, 2026 isn't just another year. It's the gateway to Formula One's future. And he's made it clear he won't waste his prime years hoping Red Bull eventually gets its act together. Mercedes, on the other hand, offers something far more enticing. A culture built for dominance, a technical foundation proven to deliver, and a power unit project that's already showing signs of being ahead of the curve. If the Silver Arrows can present a car and an environment worthy of Verstappen's ambitions, the idea of him switching sides becomes far more than rumor, it becomes strategic brilliance. And while Zak Brown's remarks might have seemed like his usual pot-stirring antics at first, this time they appear rooted in genuine insight into the evolving dynamics within the sport. If Red Bull can't clean up the mess, Max won't just consider leaving. He'll already be halfway out the door. Let's not overlook a key element in all of this, the long-standing and underappreciated relationship between Jos Verstappen and Toto Wolff. Their personal bond, often buried under the heat of competition, could become the unexpected key that unlocks a blockbuster deal. Now that Lewis Hamilton is officially heading to Ferrari, all previous hurdles, emotional, competitive, or strategic, have essentially vanished. The field is wide open for fresh negotiations between Team Verstappen and Mercedes Brackley HQ. This shifting landscape is drawing a spotlight on both Max and Mercedes. On one side, Verstappen is under pressure to prove he's capable of anchoring a new dynasty outside the Red Bull bubble. On the other, Mercedes must demonstrate they still have the ambition, resources, and infrastructure to match his sky-high expectations. And let's not forget, Wolff has never hidden his admiration for Max. Not long ago, he publicly floated the idea of Verstappen donning the silver suit. Of course, the dynamics have changed dramatically since then. Nowadays, Toto Wolff speaks in terms of continuity, long-term planning, and organizational harmony. He's insisted there's no reason to disturb the current lineup of George Russell and Andrea Kimi Antonelli, and that Mercedes intends to lock in both drivers ahead of the 2026 rule revolution. And to be fair, Russell has delivered some impressive performances in recent seasons, quietly but consistently proving his worth. Meanwhile, Antonelli, though still young and raw, has already turned heads with his raw pace and race intelligence. Like it or not, Mercedes is quietly re-establishing itself as the second most formidable force on the grid, breathing down Red Bull's neck and keeping them on edge. Still, when asked directly whether Verstappen could find himself in a Mercedes cockpit in the near future, Wolff answered with careful diplomacy. He acknowledged that it's widely understood the team wants to stick with its current driver lineup, but also pointed out that Mercedes doesn't feel the need to publicly share every internal discussion. According to him, things are moving in the direction they're supposed to. Yet beneath that composed facade lies a more complex reality. Bringing in a driver of Max Verstappen's caliber isn't just about finding a seat. It's about crafting a holistic deal that aligns the team's strategic vision with the competitive needs of a generational talent. As Wolff subtly suggested, these negotiations are about more than dollars and contracts. They're about structure, conditions, timing, and mutual trust. Because let's face it, while Russell and Antonelli may be talented long-term investments, there's no universe in which Toto Wolff would say no to a four-time world champion who even hints at being open to switching teams. We already saw a glimpse of this reality during the dramatic bombshell moment when Hamilton announced his move to Ferrari on Drive to Survive. Who was the first driver Wolff reached out to? Max Verstappen. That moment spoke volumes. No matter how committed he claims to be to his current lineup, we know how highly Wolff rates Max, and how quickly that door could swing wide open again. All of this underscores one undeniable truth. The 2026 regulations are more than just technical tweaks, they're a seismic shift that will redefine the DNA of Formula One. It's not just about engines, aerodynamics, or sustainability. These changes will redraw the competitive hierarchy, forcing teams to evolve or fade into obscurity. Most importantly, they'll shape the destinies of the sport's most valuable assets, the drivers. And right now, it's becoming increasingly clear that Max Verstappen is the central figure in this unfolding drama. He's not playing coy, he's being transparent. If Red Bull fails to give him a consistently competitive package, not just in 2025 but beyond, he won't stick around out of nostalgia. He'll leave. And honestly, who could blame him? Their empire continue to grow? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And once you do, make sure to click on the video currently on your screen to dive deeper into the biggest shakeup Formula One has seen in years.